Hello, you are welcome to this first lecture. I'll be sharing my screen with you so that we'll take the lecture immediately. I'll be teaching this course with Dr. Hassan Ajingi. My name is Professor OjoniguFriday at T. I'm putting this on record so that you can listen to it over and over, go through your notes, be familiar with the concepts we're going to discuss, and also be able to grasp the essence of the lecture and make good use of it so that you can increase your knowledge in meteorology and build a very strong foundation for the coming years. So I'm going to share my screen with you now as I take this first lecture. You're all welcome to this class. I believe my screen is clear. I want to take this lecture is MET 206. That is Introduction to Meteorological Hazards and Disasters. I will start by some basic definitions. Now, what do we mean by hazards? When you talk of hazards, you are talking of potential sources of harm or danger that have the potential to cause adverse effects on individuals, communities, the environment, and also life and properties. Hazards can manifest in various forms and are often associated with potential for damage, injury, and negative impacts. I also want to talk briefly about disaster because I've been hearing of, we hear of hazards, we hear of disasters. Now listen carefully. Where there is no loss and there is no damage, it is not a disaster. Hazard is potential event, but when the hazard takes place and there is loss to life or property, there's damage to life or property, then we refer to it as a disaster. So disaster will always bring harm to people, property, and environment. Disaster can occur suddenly or develop gradually, and they have the potential to overwhelm the capacity of affected communities or regions to cope or respond effectively. And disaster can be in various forms. We have natural disasters, such as hurricanes, earthquakes, floods, and wildfires. We have technological disasters, like industrial accidents, the Chernobyl accident, and so on. There are nuclear incidents, and also complex emergencies, like conflict, pandemics, would also be classified as disaster. Usually, disaster will lead to harm, to property, to life, and also to the environment. Now, hazards normally, when they occur, or disasters rather, when they occur, their impact goes beyond the immediate event because it affects social, economic, and environmental systems and require coordinated efforts for relief, recovery, and rebuilding. For example, if there's an earthquake in a place, the earthquake, yes, there's an immediate destruction of buildings, loss of life, and so on. But immediately it sets up a series of events, a cascade of events. For example, those who are displaced, how do you house them? How do you take care of them? Properties that were lost and destroyed, and so on. So the impact of disasters just goes beyond the event happening, buildings collapse, and so on. Beyond that, the life of the people is affected. People are displaced. Some have to migrate from the environment, and some loss of relatives. The social impact, the economic impact, and environmental impact is actually usually very serious. And then to begin to think of bringing relief, plan recovery, and rebuilding takes a lot of coordinated approach, a lot of effort, a lot of money, and also draws so much. So that is why disasters are always very so. So to understand the nature of disaster is actually important if we are to implement effective preparedness, response, and mitigation strategies for disaster. Now, quickly, let me discuss hazards, because it's hazards when they occur, when eventually the potential hazards lead to events that bring disasters, as long as life and property are affected. Now, hazards can be categorized into various types based on their origin, their nature, and the potential to cause harm. Some common types of hazards are, we have natural hazards, like earthquakes. Earthquake is the sudden shaking of the ground caused by the movement of tectonic plates. Then we have floods, overflow of water onto normally dry land, often due to heavy rainfall or storm surges. In 2022, 2012, there was a flood that occurs in the Niger, Benue Niger Valley. The same flood reoccurred again, and another flood occurred again in 2022. I was privileged to be at the site of that. In fact, I took videos of the devastating effect of that flood, wiping off whole farms, submerging buildings, destroying property of people, and leading to loss of life. Then we have hurricanes, or cyclones, or typhoons, as they are called. That's intense tropical storms with strong winds and heavy rainfall. So this also happens in extratropical environments. Then we have other national hazards like tornadoes. These are violently rotating columns of air extending from thunderstorms to the ground. Now, we are going to discuss all this one by one. This is just a summary, like an introduction, but we are going to discuss their nature, we'll discuss their characteristics, and also discuss the causes and the consequences of some of these natural hazards. We have volcanic eruptions, like release of magma, ash, and gases from the volcano. Then we have wildfires, uncontrolled fires in forests, grasslands, or other natural areas. Then we have technological or man-made hazards. These examples are industrial accidents, events such as chemical spills, explosions, or nuclear incidents in industrial facilities. We have transportation accidents, vehicles, ships, planes, or trains that result in spill crashes or explosions. These are also technological or man-made hazards. Then we have hazardous material incidents, release of hazardous substances into the environment. Then we have power outages, disruption of electrical power, and so on. Then we have biological hazards, infectious diseases, spread of pathogens such as viruses, bacteria, and parasites. The COVID-19 pandemic was a hazard. It was an infection, it was a biological hazard. Like the pandemic, okay, we've seen that we have infectious hazards, we have pandemics, widespread outbreak of diseases affecting large geographical areas. And I've given us an example already, the COVID-19 pandemic and so on. Then there's vector-borne diseases. That's disease transmitted by vectors such as mosquitoes, ticks, rats, and so on. You've heard of the outbreak of Lassa fever in several parts of the country a few years back. Last year, I think there was an outbreak of Lassa fever across the country. These are biological hazards. Then we have physical hazards. That's like radiation, exposure to ionizing and non-ionizing radiation from various sources. We have noise as a physical hazard, excessive or loud sound that can cause hearing damage or stress. Then we have extreme temperatures, heat waves, cold waves, or extreme temperatures that pose health risks. Sometimes you hear of people collapsing as a result of extreme temperatures. You have temperatures going as high as 45 degrees centigrade, leading to sudden severe vasodilation and death. And we may have extreme cold, leading to vasoconstriction, and which may suddenly cause the heart to stop. So we have physical hazards. Then we have psychological hazards, stress, mental stress, emotional stress, resulting from challenging situations. And if you look at the situation in the country presently, there's so much stress, economic stress, Parents find it difficult to pay school fees for their children, and a lot of students find it difficult to resume because there's no money to come out. Many people, you hear people committing suicide, you hear people jumping jumping into the marina through the third mainland bridge and so on. And these are all, it's an example of psychological stress. Then we have workplace bullying. When you are being presented, maltreated, or harassed in the workplace, either by the boss or by colleagues in the office, isolation in the workplace, bullying, extreme bullying, and so on. Then job insecurity, uncertainty about employment status, that these are all forms of psychological hazard. There were geological hazards like landslides, downward movement of rock, soil, and debris on the slope. We have subsidence, gradual sinking or settling of the ground surface. Then we have sinkholes. These are depressions or holes in the ground caused by collapse of the surface layer. Sometimes these sinkholes could be so deep that vehicles could drop inside and perish. So these are geological hazards. Then we have climate-related hazards. We have drought. That's when there's prolonged period of low precipitation leading to water scarcity. Then we have heat waves, extended periods of excessive high temperatures, storm surges, abnormal rises in sea level during storms, often leading to coastal flooding. And all these hazards, when they occur, they lead to disaster. So our understanding and identifying these hazards are essential for effective risk assessment, emergency preparedness, and mitigation efforts in various fields, including disaster management, public health, and workplace safety. This is very, very important. If not, if we should be able to classify hazards, every region has some peculiar sets of hazards to that region. And if we are going to really be prepared, we should be able to know which hazards are peculiar to our particular region or region of interest, and that will help us to prepare against disasters and so on. So for this first lesson, I believe that you've been able to understand what we mean by hazard, what is disaster, the difference between hazard and disaster, and also the various forms of hazards and their various disaster. I told us in the next, in one of the subsequent lectures, we will take these hazards one after the other and discuss their formation, their nature, the characteristics, the causes, and also the consequences, or rather the impact of some of these hazards. So thank you very much. I believe you'll be able to please go through again. I'm sending immediately the PowerPoint slides so that you can, as you go through the video, you also go through the slides and be able to understand better what we are discussing. Thank you. See you in the next lecture.